This week, what issues will be shaping the upcoming parliamentary session? Also, are you willing to pay more for your energy costs to reduce emissions? This and much more to come. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst.
Keep going in the direction that the nation's asking them to go in.
I'd like to see them last 4 years, so to see them all work together.
I think we need to address some of the key societal issues we have, namely affordable housing.
Maybe further action on Indigenous issues, Indigenous water issues.
I mean, what they're going to have to deal with is so many different things.
The 43rd Parliament, which Canadians elected last October, will convene on Thursday, December 5th, but not before the election of a speaker and not before a throne speech, which will outline the priorities of the minority Liberal government. Climate change, gun control, even pharmacare could be on the to-do list. But we took to the streets to ask Canadians directly what they think should top the bill when things are finally up and running. Our question: what issues will shape the upcoming parliamentary session?
I think it's just people the different parties just trying to learn to be productive in a context where the government party does not have a majority. So there's going to be, you have to be a lot more effort at compromise, finding common ground, working towards consensus.
Survival of the government, because they're in a minority position.
Yeah. You think that's going to overshadow everything else?
It's going to be the most visible part of it, right? I mean, there's going to be that constant tension. And I'm assuming deal making between the NDPs and the Liberals to pass legislation.
Given what I've seen so far, I expect pipelines and Alberta to dominate. And yeah, that would not be my preference. Again, going into a minority government situation, I think it would have been great to see, reaching out to some of maybe the more marginalized voices in Parliament. I don't think we've seen that.
It's an opportunity for us to come together, and I think the situation up there on the Hill, they should lead. They should all come together and bring the country together. It's an opportunity for us. So,
I mean, what they're going to have to deal with is so many different things. I mean, yes, I believe that we should be supporting the industry in Alberta for the oil industry, shipping as much as we can out through BC, shipping as much if we can get the pipeline out east, converting, and getting more involvement in sort of industries. That's our resources. That's what we have. So we have to develop it. Until we find some other resources, right now, this is what we have. And this is what we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck, so we can figure out a way to get oil to the market more efficiently. Because right now, Canadian oil doesn't get the real value for it when it's sold in the States.
Taxation and green energy, I'd say, and it's kind of with that, but the price of gas, which is constantly going up, carbon tax, all of that. So I'd say those are the main selling points, at least in my opinion.
Immigration's a big one, I think, and it's important. Obviously, climate change is another big topic, another thing that we're going to be forced to deal with. If people want to ignore it, they can, but eventually it'll come to fruition some way or another.
The Alberta and Saskatchewan issue of no representation. So they will, that'll be the issue, and whether or not the leaders will get along.
I think the message about the climate disaster is being heard by the right people, the people with the power to move forward on it. So I'm hopeful that message is being listened to, because it's the only one that's really worth listening to or acting on right now. You don't talk about the drapes when your house is on fire.
I think it'll be interesting to see how the red side of the country and the blue side of the country face off against each other.
I'd like to see them last 4 years, so to see them all work together. And I think in particular with Justin, I mean, he's got to get off his high horse a bit and learn to work with others, and he's not the whole show. So that would be my big hope, that they can make it work and be collaborative.
I would really like to see those folks put their heads down and start, doing some serious movement on the climate change file. And I think that, it's a time that collaboration is needed to bring unity to the country. And I think that, keep going in the direction that the nation's asking them to go in.
I'd like to see a lot of attention on our environmental issues. I do believe that we're in a period of pollution on the planet. I think it's short-lived. I don't think that we were polluting the planet as greatly as we are today for many eons, and I believe that we have the potential to not pollute the planet so gravely in the future if we pay attention to what we do today.
I know people have concerns about it being productive as a minority government, but I'm hoping that they're able to kind of maybe come together more on Canadians' viewpoints a little bit more. I think that's what I'm hoping will happen in the next session.
I'd like to see Parliament accomplish action on climate change. I'm an environmental scientist, and this is a very important issue that there's no time to waste. So we really need strong leadership in this arena right now.
A little more harmony, be less combative. They should be able to get along a bit better.
The way that we as Canadians have dialogue with each other, the country's really split right now, East, West, and Quebec. And I think the way that the dialogue is being framed and the way that we're speaking with each other as Canadians is really important for us as a nation, regardless of the way decisions that are made. So I think just the national discourse bringing us together.
I would like to see more help with the homeless people and better accommodations and support.
How about yourself? What would you like to see Parliament accomplish?
The homeless, but also the environment. I know that's been a big issue through the campaign, but I think that's a very important one that needs to be dealt with and looked at. Because if we don't deal with that, then there's nothing here for us.
Across Canada Pharmacare. What I'd really like to see is a pipeline into New Brunswick so we can get some of that Western oil.
Maybe further action on Indigenous issues, Indigenous water issues.
I think we need to address some of the key societal issues we have, namely affordable housing. Also, the climate change is pretty important, but I think it's most important that we balance it. We need to make some advances in society, but we also need to understand we have to proceed with the economy. So there has to be a nice balance between the two.
Many will say the gender balance in Canada has improved over the last few decades. And recently, the government passed legislation ensuring equal work for equal pay for both men and women. But an alliance of over 50 groups working to advance equality and the rights of women say Canada still has a long way to go. Although Canadian women working full-time make more money than women in other countries, here in Canada, women earn roughly 82 cents to every dollar a man earns. So what do you think about this? Our question. What is the state of gender equality in Canada?
Gender equality in Canada, I never really think of that. I think in general, it depends on who you work for. If you work for government, federal, there's a lot of guidelines in place so that it creates equality. If you work for the provincial government, it's a little bit, it's good and it's bad. They have guidelines, but things aren't as strict as in the federal government. In private industry, well, we're all trying to promote the idea of gender equality, but in actuality, most of the time it does work, but sometimes it doesn't.
So as a young businesswoman in Fredericton, Fredericton is known to be kind of a hub for starting businesses, and it's known to be relatively easy. But as a young woman myself, I've faced a lot of discrimination and challenges just based on my gender, and it's been very frustrating, but I do find if you know where to look, there are definitely some good people out there that are willing to help and, try and combat those discriminations, but yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be worked on for sure.
Yeah. Do you think the country's moving in a positive direction in
I
respect to that?
I definitely feel like we're definitely growing and learning, but we've definitely got a long way to go for sure.
I think it's fairly good here. Of course, we're in the first world, so I'd say we have some of the better values and traditions instead of other places in the world, of course. There's little that I think we really have to change right now. It's very good.
I'd say I've heard the wage gap still exists to some degree. I'd say we're getting there, probably decently there. However, if we talk about the whole LGBTQ plus community, I don't think it's there yet. and I think more work has to be done towards that.
I think we're at a good place right now. Most people say that still women don't get as much as men, if I heard, yeah. But I think we're in a good place right now for women in general, and girl power is all that matters now, so that's fun.
I think it's better than the United States for sure. I think that we've really come a long way.
When I consider, I was born in the 60s, and in the 60s we were thinking, equality and, women's rights. And so I guess I sort of thought that we would be a little farther advanced and, have women's equality, gender equality, and we certainly aren't anywhere near where I thought we would be at this point.
I'd say it's changing it's heading in the right direction. It's people are getting more comfortable with it, right? It's something that it's new to my generation, but it's going to be an everyday thing. Like, my kids are in elementary school now, and I don't think it's going to be an issue for them when they get to be teenagers and older. It's going to be the way Canada is, and the world hopefully will be. So
it's moving along. Yeah, it's moving along, and I know in my work environment, it's a big change in the last few years, and I'm excited about it. And diversity, not just gender equality, but it's moving along. I think it's a no-brainer. People understand that and just need to get there.
It's great to see what our Prime Minister is doing in Parliament. So that sort of removes the glass ceiling to some extent. And but there's always room for improvement, for sure.
Okay. What do you think can improve?
Well, pay equity, I think, is still an issue. What else could improve?
We could have more women higher up in the workplace. There still seem to be down at the bottom.
It's interesting to read news reports as to how few women are represented in corporate boards in Canada of the large corporations and things like that. Clearly that's symptomatic of a systemic problem there, and so something has to be done about that.
More progressive than we have been, and from an international perspective, very progressive.
Why more progressive on an international aspect?
I just think that the accommodations are certainly more visible, and there's more awareness than there has been before.
I think society has moved a lot. We probably aren't where we'll be in a couple of years. I think the openness towards pursuing that direction is also very good. So on track, not arrived.
Personally, I think we still need to implement stuff. I really think is for me as a woman working, I just feel like in the pay grade, je pense pour la paye, I'm more French, so pay grade, we still behind. And then I was reading in an article who was saying that for example, in Quebec, there's more women who are pursuing university study than men. But still, we go in that same field, but we still not get paid the same. We still not get choose on interview because they're scared that we're gonna get pregnant and then leave work for too long. So that's for me, there's a long road to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about yourself?
I agree with what she said. I think there's a lot to implement. It's definitely better than it was a couple of years ago, but we are working towards that change, and I'm glad that they are working on it.
Which province or territory is home to the highest proportion of women legislators in Canada? PEI, Yukon Territory, Northwest Territories.
PEI.
The Northwest Territories.
My guess would be the Yukon.
PEI.
I'll say Northwest Territories.
Well, I would have said BC, so I'm going to say Northwest Territories.
I'm going to go Yukon.
I was going to say Northwest Territories.
Northwest too.
It's Northwest Territories.
Oh, we're smart.
You should high-five each other.
Yes.
The Northwest Territories elected a record number of women to their legislative assembly in October of 2019. 9 out of 19 seats are now held by female MLAs, making up 47% of the legislature. That's a sharp increase from the 2 women who were elected to seats in 2015. Currently, no legislature in the country has achieved gender parity. The next nearest province or territory with a large number of women in their legislature is Quebec, where women hold 54 out of 125 seats, or 43%. New Brunswick has the fewest number of legislators who are women. The House of Commons has 98 members of Parliament who are female. It's not hard to notice the effects of carbon pricing these days. We see it at the pumps and on coal-fired electricity. A carbon tax imposed on things with a high volume of carbon dioxide will raise the price or cost on those items. But for those of you who are environmentally conscious, digging a little deeper into your pockets may not be a problem. So, how about you? Our question. Are you willing to pay more for your energy costs to reduce emissions?
Absolutely. I have no quarrel with that. It's been proven to work in other countries.
Not really, but I don't have a choice.
For example, I drive a truck. 20 years ago, that truck would have got maybe 15 liters per 100 kilometers based on the value that the readings that they have. Now, I have a new truck, and now that truck's going on an average around 10. So we've already created a very good efficiencies in what we're using. So why not subsidize more in trying to create more efficiencies in what we have, in the technology we have right now? To go out and try and spend on something that we don't even know if it's going to be worthwhile or not. So there's a lot of waste.
If it means cutting down on emissions, of course. Like, I pay for everything else. Why not throw a couple more bucks in there? It's okay.
Inevitably, I think it's going to come anyway. So if it's a slow increase, I don't think people are going to feel it as much. I know everybody wants to go electricity and everything, but if it was just a snap, bang electricity, we know that electricity is just going to spike. The government's got to make money. Everybody's got to live. So we get it. The whole emissions thing, I feel we're doing, we're taking part, we're doing our part. There's other places in the world that, are obviously, a mild disaster. So switching over to electricity, it's coming. Yeah. Are we going to pay more? It's inevitable. Yeah.
I am willing to pay more because we do need to reduce emissions, but it has to probably the people who are creating the most emissions, which obviously is in transportation, probably are going to need a lot more help and guidance from the government in order to figure out how to do that. We're a very vast province. It's very hard to get from point A to point B without using a lot of transportation. But personally, I'm willing to pay a little bit more. As long as it's going to the right places.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I just think it's the right thing to do. I don't think that wouldn't be like a massive expense. It wouldn't change my lifestyle whatsoever. If it was, $1,000 a year here and there, I don't think that's too much to ask for.
As long as I know that the extra cost is going to a program that's actually going to work, then sure.
No. Definitely not. I think we pay enough in taxes as it is, and I don't think throwing money at the problem is a solution. I think they got to approach businesses and work with businesses, let the businesses work on it, give the businesses tax credits, or give money. I don't mean give money, but businesses are the ones that are going to have to create the solution.
I'm willing to pay a little bit more. I want to save the environment just like everybody else. But quite frankly, if you're talking about increasing the cost of my power bill, doubling my power bill, I can't afford that. So there needs to be a happy medium in there somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. If it was for the cause, for sure, and if there's going to be changes for me paying that much, yes.
It's an important investment. We cannot continue to create carbon and put it into the atmosphere with the consequences for climate change that in line with the kind of patterns that we've been following for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's just, it's crazy. It makes no sense. We have the scientific evidence that that is the wrong thing to do. Therefore, we've got to curb our emissions and find ways of dealing with that. And one very proven way of dealing with that is, in fact, to make the production of carbon more expensive so that people will change their consumption patterns.
Yes, I think indirectly citizens will be paying more for energy costs to deal with it one way or another. And if one proactively does it in a programmatic way, that probably will actually be less spending than if one just dealt with the unforeseen consequences of climate change and devastation and rebuilding. So yeah, meeting these challenges in a planned, designed way makes good sense to me.
Yeah, if we all do it together. It has to be all of us has to do it together. I can't be the only one paying, and then we still have the same. Nothing has changed. So it's good to say we are paying, but is that really my money? Is really going there? That would be my number one question.
If that's what the money's going towards, and there's evidence that that's the case, I'm all in. Yeah, absolutely. I'll pay more for that. I'm not convinced that's where the money's going though.
Many party leaders from the past, both as Prime Minister and in opposition, have resonated with Canadians, and their charisma alone has made them very successful. But anyone who takes over this job certainly has their work cut out for them, and their main objective is to win you over. So in terms of attributes for a leader, what's on your list? Our question. What qualities do you look for in a political leader?
You know, I haven't even really thought about that. I've just always been like, oh, I don't believe in politicians, and just kind of been turned off by politics. But I guess it would be things that I look for in a good boss would be the same as for a good politician.
Well, someone that follows through on what their campaign is about, because I'd say the last 20-ish years, they always promise something and no one ever sees it. And then there's a 4-year gap, and then all of a sudden we switch. So it's like, okay, well, are we going to go to, this other party that just made a promise? We just learn from that. You got to dig deep, and you got to see what their promises are. And then you have to see what their actual stands are. Like, don't just follow people on Facebook. That's a disaster, or Twitter, or any of those. It's just not going to work. Everybody in the country has to do their homework and really be educated on what who they're voting for, what they're getting in party.
Honesty and integrity are probably the two top ones. Their track record of keeping promises and having their finger on the pulse.
I like somebody that's the world actually has a good opinion of, somebody you can be proud of. I think that they have, the climate change and things like that that are important, more important. I think that's got to be at the forefront. And just a good representative of what most Canadians are.
Don't put your personal beliefs, that has nothing to do with the rest of your people that you're representing. Keep your personal opinions away from your party or from the people.
Honesty, trust, good morals. Just be honest. Be compassionate, understand, listen. That's what I look for. Just straight good morals. That's what I would be looking for.
I don't want to see a professional politician so much. I know it's important that they understand how the system works, but I would feel more comfortable if I also knew that there was somebody out there that was, had some experience, working a real job. Well, not a real job, but a job, sort of more in the real world, like doing those types of things. I think that's more important than being a professional politician, because they're out of touch and when they're like that and they don't understand what normal or average people are going through.
Honesty and follow through. If they're going to commit to something, and I find that that's something that we don't see often, if they're going to say something, then do it, and actually have a reason to do it, not just to buy public support.
Platform consistency, like having the same values and not having them early and not changing them recently to fit in to other policies that are popular at the time.
something that they've stood for a long time.
I guess in a political leader is being straightforward, making decisions that are, worthwhile decisions. So if we need to make cuts, make the cuts. Let's spend the money where we're going to get the best bang for our buck and not try to think of things that are fluff and that maybe will satisfy only a few selective groups than the masses in general.
Reconciliation, efforts with the Indigenous, plus I also look for a lot of investing opportunities to make more green efforts. So like with the Conservatives, I know a lot of people didn't like Andrew Scheer for certain reasons, but I actually went for the Conservatives just because I liked how they plan to increase green incentives through taxation of like larger companies that are responsible for that, as well as investment opportunities. So it's kind of like a win for everybody, where instead of kind of bleeding everybody dry, we, like I said, through investing, we kind of just build upon it.
I like a leader who knows what he's doing. I like a leader who knows what his plan is, and I like a leader that is for all Canadians.
Willing to actually make a change with the person that is saying that they'll make a change and really going for it.
Somebody who's for the people, somebody who's got more, left-leaning tendencies. I'm a Green Party supporter, so that's what I look for. You look at Elizabeth Bay's platform, that's what I'm all about.
Someone that someone that I can relate to, right? But also sort of has my interests in mind, or sort of about where I am in my life and what's important to my family and to my family's future as well.
Fairness and ability to be genuine. Genuine individual, and an individual who can speak genuinely about the issues that we have in the country.
Building national consensus around key questions, difficult questions like the ones you've just been asking me about, issues around climate change, issues around gender equality, and so on. These sorts of things, but just generally a sense of it's not my way or the highway. It's what is good for Canada, and what can the leaders do to work together to, in fact, benefit Canadians rather than resulting in stalemate and things like that. Which there's probably quite a high likelihood of that if people don't think about the common good.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or question ideas about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.